Hello, everybody from Alexandria, Virginia. Another episode once again on the Sports Clock. My pleasure to have on current Eastern Kentucky University athletic director and former athletic director at my alma mater, Missouri State, someone I worked very closely with during my time at MSU, Kyle Moats. Kyle, how are things at Eastern Kentucky? And good to see you. I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, good to see you as well. And things are going great. We're excited that the school year started. We're well into it in football and all the other sports, just like everywhere else. But things are good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate you being on. I want to talk about a little bit. So you were at Missouri State. What I'm oh
Sorry.
nine 2010. I got there in 2011, and then you just left last year. So you were there a while. Can you just kind of talk about your time at Missouri State and working with, being the AD there?
Yeah, it was a great 15 years. I thought, had a really good run. A lot of positive things happened. Academically, we were good. I think football certainly improved. I think baseball was always been good. Soccer's both improved. I think the one thing that people certainly, when they look back at that time, will look at basketball, and that probably struggled, not to the level that everybody wanted to, and people love basketball in Springfield, as you know. But
Yeah.
um, Zoe's coming back, and I know he's going to try to get things turned around to where he had it when things were going well.
Yeah, but and talking about basketball too, obviously men's basketball had the struggle. They had a lot of ups. Can't disagree with the hires that were made with Paul Lusk, who I'm very close with, Dana Ford, obviously, Konzo coming back. But women's basketball had a great run there, and you made a couple of tremendous hires, and Kelly Harper, and then Mox is now at Virginia, and so women's basketball was successful under your tenure there as well.
Well, certainly, and again, Coach Burnett kind of got that thing going, and Nyla had a good run, but yeah, we were really fortunate to have a super run to keep things going there. A lot of tradition, a lot of expectation there. The attendance at women's basketball is probably one of the best in the country, or top 20. There's an expectation there to do well in women's basketball. So I think you had a little bit, you had a really good chance of hiring good coaches because they knew of the history and success that Missouri State had and the fan base. So, yeah, we were fortunate and lucky that had some good people that want to be a part of the program, and then really, Mox's numbers are off the charts, which he did, and certainly Kelly was very successful as well, and I think Beth's doing a super job now too.
Yeah, it's I'll say this, I would not be where I am in life without Missouri State athletics, and I think that's the part that I really want people to realize is just how much, win, loss, whatever. I was a part of some not so great years with men's basketball. One great year, women's basketball, we made the WNIT my last year, and then baseball, obviously, we were not very good, and we were not good at all in 2014. Then 15 had that super regional run, and I think back at all those experiences, and it's just the opportunity I got there, and that university has meant the world to me. So I'm just appreciative of like I said, you being on, and you were a part of me having the opportunities I had there.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, school's not always about the wins and losses. I think you remember it most if you do win a lot, and those are great experiences. But I think you probably would attest that you learned a lot regardless if you won or lost, right? I mean, the coaches that you work for, the people that you work for,
Yeah.
the student athletes that you worked along with, those are memories you're going to have for the rest of your life, and those are positive. And we all want to win. That's why we get in the business. But I think there's a lot more to it than just that, and we hope that the learning experience you have by working, helps you for your career and move on in life, and those experiences make you better and more valuable.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciative. Like I said, the mentors, Casey Hunt and I are very, very close, and would not be where I am without that. And want to talk about, you're at Eastern Kentucky. How's that been over the last year, and just your experience there now?
Yeah, it's been a good one. I really enjoy the people I'm working with, and it's really about people, right? That's why we get into the business, and we've got a good staff here that's a good young staff that's working really hard, and we've got resources to be successful in the ASUN, and we're going to be moving on to the UAC the following year at the end of this year,
Mhm.
and we should fare well in that conference as well. So again, we want to do better.
Yeah.
There's not a sport that we don't want to do better in, and I think we have the resources to do that. We've got a good coaching staff. Uh, People are passionate here, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
about basketball and certainly about football. We've got a great history and tradition of football here at Eastern Kentucky. So, again, I look forward to coming in every day. My family is here, which I'm very, very fortunate to have them here. That's really, really important to me. I know a lot of people say that, but I actually have my family here and able to work with my son-in-law and work with my son. So that's really important to me. But people have been great. The university's been really good to work with. They're wanting to be really good, and I want to be really good. So we've got resources to be successful, and I'm very, very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I remember watching your press conference when you got introduced there, and I was so happy for you and your family. I know that family's always been, always been very, very important, obviously. And so when you got that job and you were going home, I was very happy for you. Missouri State obviously, lost a great person, but Eastern Kentucky's gained, and hopefully Patrick Granstow can get it going there at Missouri State, and just so happy for everybody involved there. Wish everybody the best.
Yeah, and again, I had a great time at Missouri State. I wouldn't trade it for anything. 15 years is a long time to be at one
Yeah.
spot. There's many people tell you that you shouldn't be at one spot for that long because both sides you get tired of one another. And I think it was the right time for me at Missouri State. There's a new president coming in, as you know.
Yeah.
We were going to Conference USA, which is a great, exciting time for someone to come in and really mold that the way they wanted to. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of hard work to get to that point.
Yeah.
So again, I wish Patrick and his staff and all those coaches, which are pretty much the same coaches that were there when I was there, I wish them all the success. I hope they win everything they can win.
Yeah, no, and we appreciate all you did for Missouri State athletics. Everything. So your tenure's been recognized. The one thing too, I have to ask you. So you hired Bobby Petrino, and basically he turned around Missouri State football. And just yesterday, he was named interim head coach again at Arkansas. So kind of in hindsight, 2020. Personally, I kind of saw it coming there at Arkansas, but I remember when Petrino was hired at Missouri State, Steck got let go, all that. And then all of a sudden Petrino, out of left field, it seemed like, and had the success. Like for you now, what's that kind of looking at now? He's back at Arkansas. How does that all, just tell me your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if it's that big a surprise that he got the interim tag. I think it was probably a more surprise to people that he came back to Arkansas originally, right?
Right.
After
Yeah.
the situation and everything that happened.
Right.
That to me is probably a bigger question. It's not really much of a surprise to me that he was named interim. I mean, he's the head coach. I think probably Coach Pittman knew that might could happen if he didn't get it done, right? And I think they hired him for that reason. If it didn't get done, then certainly they had somebody waiting in the wings. But I don't think, again, this is just my opinion. I don't think Bobby went into it thinking that way. I think he went into it as I'm an offensive coordinator in the SEC, and if something comes open, I hope to be a head coach again. I don't think he was looking for, hey, I got to be at Arkansas and Sam goes the other way. I don't think that's the way he was looking at it all. It just happened to work out that way, and he's a really good coach, as we all know. And I've said it many times. I've said it publicly in many media broadcasts and publications that if it weren't for Bobby getting us turned around, I don't know where we would have been. I'm not sure we would be where Missouri State is if it wasn't for Bobby and the success he had in that 3-year span.
Yeah, it's been exciting to watch too. I mean, I watch every game, and it's I know they lost last week, close game, but they're doing a lot better than I personally, would have expected. But it's, it'll be interesting to see. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. I know Rhett Lashley. It just came out. Rhett Lashley from SMU is a candidate for Arkansas. Hopefully Bobby gets it, but if not, Rhett, might get it. And then does that mean Ryan Beardley? So there's all sorts of moving parts in coaching. It seems like, and it's, you just got one eye on one job, one eye on the other. It seems like.
Yeah, it's hard to follow all that, as you said, Tyler. But I'm not really tracking too much on that, except
Right.
I know that Arkansas opened up. But I hope Ryan does a really good job, and I think he's a fantastic young coach. He's full of energy. I think what he's done at Missouri State has been really, really good. He's kind of kept that going from what Bobby did. And I'm not sure, what people thought, and but he certainly has made Missouri State a football contender, and they've been in every game, and they were in games against North Dakota State and South Dakota State. So I think he's a really good coach. I think he's just kind of the personality what Springfield needs. But doesn't matter what I think, Tyler. Right? Just I'm a fan now. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I think. It's Patrick and those folks, the powers to be, have to make that determination.
Yeah, and I've wanted to ask too. So I've never actually I've never had an athletic director on my podcast before. What are your day to day like? Obviously, I work, we work together, but I never really, I was always around the coaches and stuff. But like, what does your day to day consist of?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this job. I don't think it's the same thing every day, right? It's that's what I enjoy about it. It's not the same routine every single day. It could be working with university administrators on things that you need done. It could be working with regular students,
Mm-hmm.
help come to your events. It could be with student athletes that have concerns or issues. It can be certainly with coaches, right, that want more resources. It can be with donors. You meet lunch, you go out to dinner. I mean, every facet of the program you're going to touch, and some days you may touch more of those in one day, and others you may hit all of them. So it just depends. You're trying to, from a vision and goal standpoint, trying to figure out where you're at and how you can help get those resources to make your student athletes and your coaches successful. That to me is the number one thing. You always talk about what are the job responsibilities of an athletic director, and there's certainly those that are out there. Your job is to personnel hire and fire. You got to be the PR person. You got to be the number one fundraiser. You got to set the vision, the goals. I mean, those are kind of the things that are tangible. But at the end of the day, your job is to find the resources to make your coaches and your student athletes as successful as they possibly can be. That's as easy as I can say it, and people understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I'll never forget when, so you talked about hiring and firing, which is part of the business. I've been there. I've been on the other side. With at Loyola with what happened there. It's just no hard feelings, up there, but it's one of those where you said in the press conference when you let Coach Luss go, you said I absolutely hate, or maybe it was Steckel. I can't. It was one of them, but you said I love to win, but I absolutely hate to lose, and that has always stuck with me. I'm like, I'm going to start going in with that mindset. I love to win, but I absolutely hate to lose. And
yeah, and that's from my competitive days. This is going to sound a little bit not the way I want it to sound, right?
Yeah.
A little bit. If I worked hard and I thought I was talented enough to beat the other person, I expected to win, right?
Yep.
That wasn't. I don't want to say it was a surprise. You certainly can play well and play up, if you will, and beat somebody.
Yep.
But that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to beat the person, and so my motivation, again, just me, my motivation was more that I just couldn't stand to lose because I felt like I worked hard, I prepared, and then obviously sometimes the guy's just better than you are, and if that's okay, I didn't get too upset or get too mad, maybe frustrated, but if I lost to somebody that I thought I could beat or should beat, that was tough for me to handle that because then I felt like I failed, and I don't like to fail, certainly much more than. I'm okay to win, but I'm not somebody that brags and gets all excited about winning because I want to win, expect to win, but boy, I sure hate losing. It's just a horrible feeling.
I'm the same way, and I'll never forget that. If you remember, I think it was my second year with men's basketball. Wichita State was ranked number 2 in the nation. Came into Springfield, and we got screwed on that call at the end with I think it was Nate Shear. They called it a block, and it was a charge. It was and I'll go ahead and say it. I don't care. I'm not in the business. It was the referees, and the powers to be, trying to keep Wichita State protected. But man, what an atmosphere that was too. Even though we lost, it was heartbreaking, but at the same time, I'm like, and we weren't good at all that year, but to hang with Wichita State as long as we did, it was like you think about moments like that where it's like you hate to lose, but you also like we were competitive, which at that time was like, wow. I don't know if you remember that game. I'm sure you do, but
Yeah, I enjoy. I don't enjoy the outcome of those types of games,
right.
but I do enjoy the atmosphere and the passion of the people. Right, that's what you want. You want people to care about what the product is you have out there, and care about their coaches and care about your student athletes. And they come, and I didn't mind if they got wild and rowdy. Now again, you can't say some things that maybe you shouldn't, but nonetheless, you want that. That's a great environment for both teams, and I think the visiting team would tell you that as well. I would rather have 10,000 people yelling and screaming and calling me names than have 50 people in the gym.
Yeah.
That's an awful feeling. So
Yeah.
I'd rather have 10,000 of them yelling. So, we talk about that, and we just had that in the Ryder Cup, right? Where you had probably 95% of the people yelling at the Europeans, and you had a couple of those knuckleheads say something probably about Rory's mom or Rory's wife or something
Yeah.
that crosses a line. But that atmosphere, if the Euros, I love that atmosphere. I love that. Much
You
rather
should
have people yelling at me than going crazy and cheering for me because
You should attend an NHL playoff game. That's something like I still get. I went a couple years ago. I went to a bunch of Rangers playoff games up in New York, and I still get chills, like just thinking about like how the difference of the atmosphere. Like you want that, whether your team's, has a losing record or is number ranked top 25 in the nation. I feel like you want the support because they're there for the student athletes, in my opinion. And that's why I've always loved college athletics. I feel like you're there to support the student athletes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yep, I agree. Not just on the court, but off the court too.
Yeah, absolutely. Two more things, Kyle. So we have a mutual mentor. I just learned a couple of years ago when I lived in Florida. I took some classes with Sports Management Worldwide, and we were doing introductions. And I told him who I was, all the pro teams I've worked for. Said I was a Missouri State grad, and this guy looks at the computer and he goes, Missouri State grad. He goes, do you know a guy named Kyle Moats? And I said, of course I know Kyle. I said, I've known him since I was 18 years old, 17 years old. And he goes, he's a very, very close, or I guess he was a mentor of yours, or you guys at SIUE knew each other. He was the AD. And he goes, he actually thanked me in the press conference when he got introduced as AD at Missouri State. And I was like, wow. So talk about Lynn, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Lynn was the athletic director at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, which is where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to get involved in college athletics. That's what I always wanted to be in college athletics. I didn't know exactly how or what. It originally was to coach, and then I found out I don't really want to coach. So I went to Dr. Lashbrook,
mm-hmm.
and I said, "Hey, I want to volunteer in the athletic department." And this is why I was still an undergrad and playing golf. And I said, "Hey, I'll do whatever I need to do. I want to help." So he was nice enough, and we needed the help at that level.
Yeah.
And I worked at the Cougar Club, which was the athletic fundraising department. Worked in there and just did special events and that type of thing. And then I also had a coach by the name of Harry Gallatin, who was the golf coach.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them then helped me get a graduate assistant's position at the University of Kentucky. So Dr. Lashbrook was nice enough to say good things about me in a resume and help me move on to my career. I wouldn't be here. So I'm forever grateful for him. And that's why I acknowledged him and thanked him, because I wouldn't have been there if it weren't for him.
That's awesome. And relationships, I've learned, matter. Just having worked, all my, pro sports jobs, college, it all started with Missouri State. It moved up. I'll never shy away from my time at Missouri State, and I'll say this too. So I know I was texting you earlier, but so I'm was with one of the Nationals coaches last night, and it's just weird how small of a world it is. I walk out of, the restaurant we were at, after the game. I was hanging out with one of the coaches after the game, and I had my Missouri State baseball shirt on. I had this cap on. And this guy goes, hey, you went to Missouri State? I said, yes, I did, and he goes, I used to play basketball there. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, I'm JT Miller. And
Yeah.
I, shook his hand. He was working at the place we were at. And it's just like, wow, of all places in Washington, D.C., this was in downtown D.C. near where the Capitals and Wizards play. And it's like, who would have known? I mean, I can't tell you, Kyle, how many times, like when I lived in Chicago, I'd have Missouri State stuff on. People would say, oh, I went there. Or, oh, I know someone who went there. It's And it all comes back to the relationships, and that's, to me, that's what's so cool about athletics.
Yeah, it is kind of a big family because people know one another, or
Yeah.
they move around, as and then you get to know those folks. So it seems like it's kind of a really big family because you can have from Washington to Florida, but you touch a lot of people, and if you're in the business long enough and you play one another, or you got playoffs, or you got going to the tournament, or you're in Christmas tournaments or holiday, you're going to kind of go through everybody at one point or another, especially if you've been in it as long as I have. So, but there's a lot of new people coming up too. But nonetheless, it is a pretty neat fraternity, and people are they come from what you did, right? You work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, work your tail off, and you get chances, and that's what our business is about. I don't think you have to be the smartest person in the world. You may have to have some niche things that you're good at, but if you have a good work ethic and you work your tail off, you can get quite a ways.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And last question, Kyle, and I'll let you go. What for someone, you kind of touched on it just now, but for someone who's maybe looking to get into college athletics or sports, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Yeah, and I get, I was on a podcast at Georgetown last
Mhm.
week, kind of on the same thing. We had a panel with students on it asking that same question,
Yep.
and I do think there's some certain intangibles that you have to have. I think you have to be open minded. Our business is changing all the time, so I
Yeah.
don't think one set of ideas. I think you sometimes have to live a little bit in the middle. Now you don't have to compromise your principles, but I do think you have to keep an open mind. I think you have to, as I just mentioned, you have to work hard. If you're going to work in this business, you're going to work late hours, you're going to work
Yep.
weekends, you're going to miss your kids' events. Now,
Yep.
some people say, you got to make a priority, and you have to have, faith, and you have to have your family, and then it comes that way. And that's fine. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that that's what the barometer should be, but sometimes you're not always going to hit that. But I agree that that should be kind of the way you look at it. But you're not going to have that all the time. Sometimes things are going to come up. So you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to kind of sacrifice a little bit. I think you always have to keep learning,
Mhm.
right? Just because what we did back 30 years ago doesn't mean it's right now, right? You
Right.
have to adapt and look at things differently. I think that's important. Um, I always think, and you mentioned too, it's relationships, relationships, relationships. It's like real estate, right? It's like location, location, location. That's what it is. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to, I had a mentor of mine, Gene DiFilippo, who is now with Turnkey, and he was my supervisor at Kentucky, and he
Yep.
was probably the best networker I know. I mean, there was not a situation or occasion that he didn't pass up in order to try to network or tell somebody thank you that he didn't have any idea who it was, but he maybe down the road he might, right? He was smart enough to understand that. So I think that's really, really important to keep doing that. You never can have too many friends, never.
Absolutely. And did you say Turnkey Sports out of Haddonfield, New Jersey, correct? I
Correct.
interviewed for a job with them about when I was living in Chicago about 10 years ago. So like it's wow, that's that's ironic too. Like they're good for those of you that don't know, they're a sports retained executive search firm for sports. So they do a lot of like AD searches. So yeah, great company and that's awesome. So Kyle, it's been awesome catching up, and again, thank you for all you've done, Casey Hunt, everybody at Missouri State. They gave me opportunities. I feel like I took it and ran with it. I would like to say I gave Missouri State everything I had, and it led to one thing to another, and I'm just so appreciative of your time and the opportunity you gave me as well.
Yeah, and for the folks that watch this, I don't know if they know your nickname is franchise. I don't know if they
Franchise.
know that, right? They have Tyler over there, but I don't think, and there's a reason why, right? Franchise, you're the franchise, right? Without you, the thing goes down the tube. So that's a great
Well,
nickname. So congratulations. I always going to call you franchise because it's not
I
really in
know.
my vocabulary.
And it's funny. And I appreciate that. But the funniest thing was if you remember, I went to Loyola Chicago, which we'd be on another like 10 minutes if I tell that story. But it was time to kind of move on and get out of Springfield. I'd grown up, lived all my life in the Springfield area, had a great opportunity to work under Cheryl Swoops. And I got to campus and I thought I was just going to be another, franchise at Loyola's campus, and Cheryl goes, and I love Cheryl. She's like a mom to me, but she goes, I hate that nickname, and we will no longer be calling you that. You are now Tyler. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the big man on campus. Not that I ever was, but it's like after that, franchise kind of dwindled away. But no, I always, anytime I talk to my Missouri State people, I always, appreciate like franchise and how that started. I don't know if you've got another minute. So,
Sure.
Nick, do you remember Nick DiCapo, the manager? He was I can't remember. You, yeah, you were still there my senior year of high school at Willard. I was hanging out with the basketball team. They were going to bring me in as a manager, all that, which was awesome. And I'm walking down the tunnel between Hammond Student Center and JQH, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, Nick goes, "What's up, franchise?" And I'm like, "Where the hell did that nickname come from?" And it's stuck ever since. And then, I still, to this day, Coach Lusk actually just texted me and said, "Hey, franchise, how are you?" I talked to Eddie Meyer. I could name. I'm gonna miss people, but it's. I'm just so grateful for that. And yeah, that franchise. That's a trademark.
I agree. Hey, everybody wants a nickname, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants a nickname. You got one of the best ones.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kyle. Please tell the family I say hello. Appreciate all you've done. Wish you the best of luck there to Eastern Kentucky. And, hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Okay. Take care. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kyle. Kyle Moats on the Sports Clock.